Alright, today we'll discuss the directions portion. This portion which says direction. In each of the following questions, a related pair of words or phrases is followed by five-lettered pairs of words or phrases. Select the lettered pair that best expresses a relationship that is similar to that expressed in the original pair. For example, if the original pair is sedative and drowsiness, we have to figure out the relationship of this word that is sedative with the other word that is drowsiness, right? And here I can say that this thing which is sedative causes drowsiness, right? So we are looking for the same relationship in these five options, and whichever suits best or is much more similar to this relationship, we'll select that, and that has to be the answer. For example, if I have a look at the A option, it says epidemic, and the other word is contagiousness. So contagiousness causes an epidemic, not vice versa, right? So this cannot be the option. In the same way, the second one is virus and like vaccine and virus. And I can say that vaccine fights a virus, right? So this also cannot be the option because this one fights with a virus. The third one is laxative and drug. A laxative is a kind of drug, right? It doesn't causes drug or something like that. So this is a kind of drug. So no for this one too. Anesthetic and numbness. An anesthetic causes numbness, right? So this has a relationship exactly the same as the original pair. So this has to be the answer. Therapy and psychosis. Therapy treats psychosis, right? That's the relationship that they have. So therapy treats psychosis. The only good option that we have here is the D one, that is anesthetic and numbness. Right, so D is the option for this one. Let's move on to the ninth one, lawyer and courtroom. So if we have to find out the relation of lawyer and courtroom, I can say that a lawyer works in a courtroom, right? So I can say that the relation of lawyer is works in the other word, right? Lawyer works in a courtroom. The first option, which is A, participant and team. So a participant doesn't works in a team, right? Participant is a member of the team, I can say that. So this is not the option. Commuter and train. Commuter uses train, right? It also doesn't satisfies, and it also cannot be the answer, so no. Gladiator and arena. So now here, gladiator does fight in an arena, right? Fights in an arena. That's what a gladiator does. The D1 is senator and caucus. Caucus is a type of meeting. If we have a look at this option, that is the E1, patient and ward, I can say that patient stays in a ward, right? So the very competitive one or the very similar one would be C, that is gladiator and arena, that suits lawyer and courtroom, right? Because we discussed that lawyer works in a courtroom and gladiator fights in an arena. So I can say that the other one can be a place of work or activity, the other word, right? For the first one. Okay. Let's move on to the 10th one, curiosity and know. If I have to develop a relationship between the curiosity and know, right, these two words, I can say curiosity motivates someone to know, right? That's the driving force. So this motivates someone to know? No, right? The first one is temptation and conquer. These are two opposite ideas. Starvation and eat, right? Starvation, yes, it can cause someone to eat, right? So yes, this can be an option. Wanderlust and travel. Now wanderlust means a travel, like a desire to travel, so it can also definitely cause someone to travel, right? So okay, let's stick with both of them for the time being. Humor and laugh, no. Survival and live, no, right? So the two options that we have at hand are starvation and eat, and the other one is wanderlust and travel, right? If we have a look at the original pair, which is curiosity, it means, like, it literally means desire to know, right? So this means desire to know. And if we have a look at the option C, I can say that wanderlust is a desire to travel, right? So the most similar one would be C1. It's a desire, right? A desire to know, that's curiosity, and a desire to travel, that's wanderlust. So the answer would be C. Okay, moving on to the 11th one, frugal and miserly. Miserly is the extreme or excessive form of frugal, right? That's the extreme. So the extreme is frugal, right? Confident and arrogant. Too much confidence becomes arrogance, right? We can say that. So this can be an answer, because arrogant, the extreme of arrogance can be, the confidence. Okay, courageous and pugnacious. Pugnacious means eager to fight. So no. Famous and aggressive, these are two unrelated. Rash and foolhardy, both are, already negative. Quiet and timid, not necessarily. Okay, the very first one you can find out can be, in fact, is the answer of all these 5 options. Frugal, miserly, and confident, arrogant both have the same relation, so A is the answer. Okay, moving on to the 12th one, antidote and poison. The relationship of antidote and poison is antidote counteracts poison, right? So I can write counteracts poison, and I have to look for a first word that counteracts the second. So cure and recovery. I can say cure produces recovery, right? So no, that produces recovery. Narcotic and sleep. So narcotic causes sleep. No. Stimulate and relapse. These are two opposite words. If I have a look at resuscitation and breathing, so resuscitation produces breathing, right? Whereas we are looking for a word that has to be counteractive to the second one. So yes, tonic is the answer, because a tonic does counteract lethargy, right? So it has the same meaning. Tonic counteracts lethargy. So D is the answer to the 12th one, right? If we have a look at the 13th one, it says Stygian and Doric. Let us, try to make a relationship between the two. Stygian means extremely dark. So the first word is an extreme version of the second one, right? Abysmal and low. So abysmal usually means terrible, right? So unrelated, I would say. Cogent and contentious, these are also unrelated, so no. Fortuitous and accidental. Here I can say that fortuitous means happening by chance, right? So these two are synonyms, I would say. Reckless and threatening, these are unrelated. And the last one, which is catalecticism, catalectismic, and doomed, are also unrelated, right? So the only option that we have here is C, which is fortuitous and accidental. Here the strategy that I can mention of the two words of the original pair can be rare adjective, and the other has to be the synonym, right? So that's what the actual pair means, and that's what we were looking for. Okay, the 14th one is a worship and sacrifice. So let's develop a relationship between worship and sacrifice. I can say that sacrifice is a way of worship, right? Or expressing worship, right? So that's a way of expressing worship. If I have a look at the first one, which is generation and pyre, these are two unrelated. Burial and mortuary. Mortuary is basically a place, so no. Weapon and centurion, I would say unrelated. Massacre can happen in an invasion, but still, that's not the answer that we are looking for. The last one is prediction and augury. Now, augury is a prediction by interpreting signs. It is essentially a method of prediction, right? So we can say augury is a method of prediction. And this is indeed the answer, because the other four are unrelated and cannot be the answer. Okay, then we have to move on to 15th one, which is evanescent and disappear. If I have to develop a relationship between evanescent and disappear, I would say that evanescent means likely to disappear or fade away, right? Likely to disappear. Okay, let's have a look at the options. Transparent and penetrate. Okay, transparent lets light pass through, right? But not closer to the answer. Onerous and struggle. Something onerous causes struggle, right? So this can be an option. Feckless and succeed. These are two opposites, so no. Illusory and exist, opposite, so no. The last one is pliant and yield. Pliant means easily bent or yielding, right? So I would say the closest match here is pliant and yield, because here, if I have to develop a strategy between the two words, I would say adjective that describes the strategy, the tendency, and this is the verb, right? So this is the adjective describing tendency, and this here is the verb. So I would say this is the answer, right? I would go with E, pliant and yield. Okay, the last one, which is the 16th one, is upbraid, and the other word is reproach. These are both synonyms. We are supposed to look for the answer or the pair that matches it. The most, dote means love excessively, right? But this cannot be the answer, so no. Lag, stray, different, so no. Vex and please, these are two opposites, no. Earn and desire, these are two unrelated, so no. Recast and explain, these are not synonyms, right? So no. But still now we have, one has to be the answer, right? So we would have to look for the closest one. Okay, obviously we cannot find a perfect one in this case, but in this case we have to go for the closest one, and closest one I would say is A, because although not perfect, dote means to be very fond of, right? Making it the closest synonym pair among the options. So dot here means to be very fond of. right? So that is it for this video.